In a silent room buzzing with a $120 million deal, one hushed, defiant whisper was about to shatter everything. That's the wrong formula. For Julian Croft, a man radiating power and perfection, it was an unthinkable interruption. For Veronica Trendall, the invisible waitress pouring his coffee, it was the moment her buried past collided with his fragile future. Before we dive into this captivating story, we'd love to know where you're tuning in from. It's always great to hear your thoughts and see where everyone's joining us from. Please stay with us until the very end. The lessons woven into this tale are as sweet as they are insightful, and you won't want to miss them. The conference room on the 47th floor was perfectly silent, yet it was the loudest place Veronica Trendall had ever been. The quiet was a living thing, buzzing with the unspoken weight of $120 million. Veronica moved through this roaring silence like a ghost, her soft-soled black shoes making no sound on the polished marble. Her job was simple: keep the water glasses full, the coffee cups fresh, and above all, remain invisible. The source of the noise sat at the head of a long, dark wood table. His name was Julian Croft, and he looked like a man carved from a magazine cover: perfect teeth, a suit that cost more than Veronica's car, and a smile that never touched his eyes. He was the epicenter of the room's frantic energy, practicing his speech in a low murmur while his knee bounced a wild, silent rhythm against the floor. Across from him, two other men in identical suits were the stagehands for this silent play, fiddling with laptops and cameras. They were preparing a live broadcast, a digital bridge across the country to a single person who held all the power: the investor known only as Ms. Vance. Every wire, every lens, every pixel was focused on one goal: convincing her to part with a sum so large it felt like a myth. Veronica's job was to be a shadow, but she was a good waitress, which meant she was a great observer. She saw the tiny bead of sweat on Julian's temple that his assistant quickly dabbed away. She saw the slight tremor in his hand as he picked up his own water glass. He was a man standing on the edge of a cliff, trying to convince the world he could fly. Veronica felt a familiar pang of something she couldn't name. It was a ghost of a feeling from a life she had long since buried. A life of labs and beakers, of the smell of soil and crushed leaves, a life with her father. Her dad had been a botanist, a genius with plants. He didn't wear fancy suits. He wore dirt-stained jeans and an old, faded shirt that always smelled faintly of eucalyptus. He used to say, "The truth, Ronnie, is in the roots. You just have to be patient enough to find it." But patience ran out, money ran out, and after he got sick, hope ran out. When he died, the world of science and discovery died with him. Veronica packed up his notebooks, filled with his beautiful, looping handwriting and complex diagrams, and stored them in a box in her attic. She took a job serving coffee to men like Julian Croft because it was simple, it was safe, and it didn't ask her to hope. 5 minutes to live, Mr. Croft, one of the tech guys called out. Julian stood up and walked toward the huge digital screen behind him, which glowed with the company's logo and a complex chemical structure. "Elysian Glow is not just a cream, it's a revolution," he murmured, his eyes on the camera. He pointed to a string of characters on the board. "The secret is our proprietary formula, represented here. A rare Madagascan orchid, Angraecum sesquipedale, combined with a unique copper peptide stabilizing agent. This doesn't just halt aging, it reverses it at a cellular level." He smiled his perfect, empty smile. Veronica was clearing away an empty sugar packet nearby when her eyes drifted to the screen. She wasn't just hearing the words, she was seeing the proof of the lie written in the clinical language of science. The formula didn't just enter her mind. It hit her like a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs. That first part, the cue for copper. A cold dread, sharp and icy, shot up her spine. In her mind, an image flashed with blinding clarity. A page from her father's notebook, stained with coffee and soil. A page filled with warnings. He had been working with that same orchid, with that same impossible problem. His voice, a memory so clear, it was as if he were standing right beside her, echoed in her head. "Never copper, Ronnie. It's too unstable with the orchid's enzymes. It seems to work at first, but it's a trick. It breaks down. It becomes toxic. It needs silver. It always needs silver." Her heart began to pound against her ribs, a frantic drum against the silent, cold room. She looked at Julian Croft, at his confident face, at the multi-million-dollar lie he was about to tell. He wasn't just wrong, he was dangerously wrong. This wasn't a formula that would fail to work. This was a formula that would hurt people. It would cause rashes, burns, permanent damage. She saw future faces, scared and angry. She saw her father's face, disappointed. Stay quiet, her mind screamed. This isn't your world anymore. You're a waitress. You pour coffee. You are invisible. But her father's voice was stronger. The truth is in the roots, Ronnie. 2 minutes, the tech called. Julian smoothed his jacket, a final gesture of perfection. He was walking back to his seat, passing right by her. This was it. The moment was a grain of sand slipping through an hourglass. Her throat went dry. Her hands, the same hands that poured coffee with unshakable steadiness, were now trembling. She had to do it. As he passed, she didn't move. She didn't touch him. She just let the words escape, a sound no louder than the rustle of a leaf. That's the wrong formula. The whisper was tiny, but in the tense silence, it was a gunshot. Julian Croft froze mid-stride. He stopped so abruptly that his assistant, following behind, almost ran into him. He turned his head slowly, his eyes narrowing as he finally, truly saw her for the first time. He didn't see a person. He saw a problem. An obstacle. "What did you say?" he asked, his voice low and menacing. Veronica's heart hammered. The faces of the tech crew turned towards them, curious. "The formula," she repeated, her voice a little stronger now, though it shook, gesturing toward the screen. "The stabilizer. It shouldn't be copper. It's phototoxic when it bonds with the orchid enzymes. It will burn people's skin in the sun." For a single terrifying second, Julian's mask of confidence slipped. Veronica saw a flicker of pure animal panic in his eyes. He knew, or maybe he didn't know the science, but he knew something was off. He knew he'd cut a corner, bought the research from a questionable source, and never bothered to understand it himself. Then the mask was back on. He let out a short, sharp laugh. It was a cruel sound. "Are you kidding me?" He looked around the room at his assistants, as if to say, "Can you believe this? The caterer is giving me chemistry lessons. Mom, please, go get us some more coffee and let the adults handle the 9-figure deals." Humiliation washed over Veronica, hot and red. She felt her face flush. She wanted to shrink, to become invisible again, to run from the room and never look back. 1 minute to live. But then she thought of her father, of his worn, gentle hands, and the quiet integrity that was the only thing he had left her. She had let his legacy gather dust in an attic. Not anymore. She stood her ground. She looked past Julian, directly at the main camera with its unblinking red light. "Ask him," she said, her voice clear and firm, cutting through the tension. "Ask him what the half-life of the compound is. If he created it, he would know. Ask him about the necessary filtration process to remove the isogenol benzoate byproduct." She didn't even know where the words came from. They were just there, buried deep inside her, a gift from her father. Julian's face went pale. He looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. He was a great salesman, but he was a terrible scientist. He didn't have a clue what she was talking about. He was an actor who had forgotten all his lines. 30 seconds. What is going on here? Julian hissed at his assistant. "Get her out of here. Now." One of the men in suits started towards Veronica, his face set in a grim line. But before he could take a step, a new voice filled the room. It was a woman's voice, crisp and commanding, coming from a large speaker on the conference table. "Stop." Everyone froze. The voice belonged to Ms. Vance. She had been watching the entire exchange on her private video feed. "Hold the broadcast," the voice commanded. The tech guys looked at Julian, who was frozen in horror. "You heard her." Ms. Vance's voice cut in again, sharp as a diamond. "Kill the feed. Now." A tech hit a button, and the bright studio lights dimmed slightly. The frantic energy in the room collapsed into a thick, dreadful silence. The $120 million pitch was dead. "You," the voice from the speaker said, and Veronica knew it was directed at her, the waitress. "I don't believe I caught your name." Veronica's mouth was dry. It's Veronica. Veronica Trendle." "Miss Trendle," the voice said, with a hint of something that might have been respect. "Please tell me more about this byproduct." All eyes in the room were now on Veronica. Julian Croft looked at her with pure hatred. His two assistants looked at her with terrified confusion. For the first time in a decade, Veronica was no longer invisible. She was the most important person in the room. Taking a shaky breath, she began to speak. And as she did, she wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was her father's daughter. She walked towards the large, interactive screen at the front of the room, the one loaded with Julian's slick presentation. She picked up a stylus, her hand surprisingly steady. "The orchid, Angraecum sesquipedale, is amazing," she began, her voice gaining confidence with every word. "My father called it the comet orchid. He studied it for 20 years. It has incredible regenerative properties. That part is true." She swiped away Julian's glossy graphics, bringing up a blank white screen. She began to draw. Chemical structures, molecular chains, things she hadn't thought about in years, flowed from her hand as if she'd been drawing them yesterday. "But it's incredibly volatile. Its enzymes are like tiny, hungry sharks. When you introduce a copper peptide, you think you're taming them. For a few days, the bond holds. The cream feels silky. It even seems to work." "Julian's data," she said, glancing at him with a sliver of pity, "is probably based on a 7-day trial. Am I right?" Julian flinched as if she'd read his secret diary aloud. "But after about 10 days, or with any significant UV light exposure, sunlight, the copper bond decays. It doesn't just break, it shreds the orchid's enzymes into a new toxic compound. It's a free radical storm on your skin. It wouldn't just reverse aging, it would accelerate it. It would cause a reaction like a chemical burn." She stopped drawing and turned to face the speakerphone, to face the disembodied voice of Ms. Vance. "My father found the solution. It's not sexy. It's not cheap. It's a silver ion catalyst, specifically colloidal silver at a 20 parts per million concentration, introduced through a low-heat, high-pressure infusion. It's a longer process. It costs more, but it's stable. It's safe. And it works. It really works." The room was utterly still. The only sound was the faint hum of the air conditioning. Veronica had laid the truth on the table, bare and undeniable. She had torn down a $120 million house of cards with nothing but her father's forgotten knowledge. Julian Croft finally slumped into his chair, a deflated balloon of a man. His career was over, and he knew it. He had gambled on a lie, and the one person in the city who could expose it happened to be pouring his water that morning. "Mr. Croft," Ms. Vance's voice said, now cold as ice, "our potential partnership is terminated. My lawyers will be in touch regarding the fraudulent information you have presented. You have 10 minutes to vacate the premises." Then the voice softened again. "Ms. Trendle, are you still there?" "Yes," Veronica whispered, her legs suddenly feeling weak. "I'm here." "I have a private jet at Teterboro Airport," Ms. Vance said. "It can be ready in an hour. I'm in San Francisco. I'd like you to be on it. I think you and I have something to discuss." And Veronica, "Yes. Don't worry about your uniform. I have a feeling you won't be needing it anymore." 6 months later, the sign on the glass door read, "Trendle Botanical Sciences." Inside, the lab wasn't cold or sterile. It was filled with light and living things. Pots of orchids, ferns, and exotic plants that Veronica had only ever seen in her father's diagrams lined the windowsills. The air smelled of damp earth, clean rain, and eucalyptus. Veronica, dressed in a crisp white lab coat, held up a small, elegant glass jar. Inside was a pearlescent cream that seemed to shimmer with its own inner light. It was Elysian glow, but it was the real version, her father's version. Eleanor Vance, now a mentor and partner, stood beside her, a rare, genuine smile on her face. "He would be so proud of you, Veronica," she said quietly. Veronica looked at the cream, at the culmination of a legacy she had almost let disappear. She thought of the years she had spent hiding, making herself small and invisible, convinced that her father's world had died with him. She had been wrong. It had just been sleeping, waiting for her to be brave enough to reawaken it. She finally uncapped the jar. The scent that rose from it was subtle and clean, the promise of a truth that had been waiting patiently in the roots all along. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, but it wasn't a tear of sorrow. It was a tear of gratitude, of coming home. She was no longer a ghost in someone else's story. She was the scientist in her own. The journey of Veronica Trendle serves as a powerful reminder of profound social lessons. It teaches us that integrity and truth, like the stable silver in her formula, are ultimately more valuable and enduring than the glittering illusion of a quick, dishonest success. Her story is a testament to the fact that immense potential and brilliant knowledge can be hidden in the most unexpected places, often concealed behind a uniform or a humble job title. It urges us to look beyond surface-level judgments and recognize the worth and depth in every individual. Above all, Veronica's quiet act of courage champions the immense power of a single voice. It shows that even a whisper of truth, spoken at the right moment, can dismantle a tower of lies and redirect the course of many lives. It is a lesson in bravery, to honor the legacies we carry, to trust the knowledge we hold, and to never believe that we are too small to make a difference. Be part of our community and share in these meaningful stories. Just hit like and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you can start your day with inspiring lessons and heartfelt moments.